y equals quantity x plus 2 squared minus 1. This is the equation of a parabola in vertex form. And we are going to rewrite this equation so that we have the equation of a parabola in intercept form. So let's begin. Our first step will be to multiply out this product. X plus 2 squared is actually x plus 2 times x plus 2. And so now, because we have a binomial times a binomial, we're going to use the area model. And we're going to multiply that out. So that gives us x squared, 2x, 2x, and 4. If we combine like terms, we get x squared plus 4x plus 4. So you have to remember that 2x plus 2x actually is 4x. That's why the middle term is 4x. Now we can't forget about the minus 1. So if we put everything together, our equation is y equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then we did have this minus 1 at the end of the equation. So we have to include that. And so now if we combine like terms, we get y equals x squared plus 4x, and 4 minus 1 is positive 3. So we write that as plus 3. So the last step is for us to factor this equation. So it's going to be y equals something. So we have a trinomial, and when you factor a trinomial, you typically get a binomial times a binomial. And the way to factor is to use what some people call a diamond puzzle. So our product is 3, and our sum is positive 4. So we are looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 3 and add to positive 4. So if we think about numbers that multiply to 3, there's only one pair, 3 times 1, because 3 is a prime number. So if you think about it, 3 plus 1 is 4, so we got it. We got our two numbers, 3 and 1. So those two numbers are part of our binomial. So our first binomial is x plus 3, and then we have x plus 1. So if you take these two binomials and you multiply them out, remember if you use the area model, if you multiply them out, you're going to get back to this trinomial, and that's how you can check your answer. But for us, our goal was to change this equation in vertex form into an equation in intercept form, and we did that. So our final answer is y equals the quantity of x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 1. So that's the equation of the parabola in intercept form. Let's look at one more example, an example that's slightly more tricky. So here we have a coefficient of 2. That's what's more tricky in this problem. So let's work on this. So again, we have the equation of a parabola in vertex form, but our goal is to write it in intercept form. The starting step, or the first step, is the same thing. We're going to take this binomial product and expand it. So x minus 3 quantity squared is x minus 3 times x minus 3. And we use the area model to help us multiply that out. So x minus 3, x minus 3. Okay, let's do that. X times x is x squared, negative 3x, negative 3x, and positive 9. Don't forget that negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So we do have like terms to combine. Negative 3x and negative 3x is negative 6x. So now we end up getting a different version of our equation, but not quite yet in intercept form. So we have 2 times, remember this 2 comes from the coefficient, 2 times, so x minus 3 quantity squared now becomes x squared minus 6x plus 9. And that comes from our binomial expansion, but you also have this minus 8 at the end of the equation, and we can't forget about that. So we're getting closer. The next step is the distribution. So 2 times our trinomial. We have to distribute that trinomial. So 2 times x squared becomes 2x squared. 2 times negative 6x becomes negative 12x. And 2 times 9 becomes 18. But again, we have this minus 8, so we include that. So now we have to combine like terms because we have 8 minus 18. So our new trinomial becomes 2x squared minus 12x plus 10. Since 10 is the result of 18 minus 8. And now this is standard form, but remember our goal is to get to intercept form. So now we try to factor this. So if you look at this trinomial, you realize you have 2, negative 12, and 10, which can all be factored by 2, or you can factor a 2 out of all 3 of those. So we're going to do that. We're going to factor out a 2, which will leave us with x squared minus 6x plus 5. Remember, factoring is like dividing, so we're essentially taking that trinomial, dividing it by 2. Okay, and now we have a new trinomial, x squared minus 6x plus 5. So we're going to factor that trinomial. We're going to use the diamond puzzle. So we have 5 as our product, negative 6 as our sum. So we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 5 and add to negative 6. 5 is a prime number, so the only things that multiply to 5 are 5 and 1. But if you want 5 and 1 to add to a negative 6, it has to be negative 5 and negative 1. And so now x squared minus 6x plus 5 factors to x minus 5, x minus 1, and do not forget we have a coefficient of 2, so that it gets included in our equation as well. So the final answer is y equals 2 times the quantity x minus 5 times the quantity of x minus 1. That is the equation of this parabola in intercept form.